A group of teenagers laughed as they gathered in the park, their voices loud and mocking. To them, he was an easy target, an older man, alone, struggling to move with his cane. They circled him like vultures, shoving, taunting, assuming he was weak. What they didn't know was that this man had seen real battles, had endured things far worse than their petty cruelty. One of them reached out, yanking at his jacket.
"What's wrong, old man? Can't fight back?"
Another shoved him, expecting him to stumble, expecting fear in his eyes. But instead, there was something else, a quiet, unshaken confidence. Then, in a flash, everything changed. The man moved with a precision that shouldn't have been possible, his hands a blur as he redirected their aggression. In mere seconds, the bullies went from being in control to scrambling backward, realizing too late that they had picked the wrong target. What they had just learned, what they never could have imagined, was that this wasn't just any man. He was a war hero. A soldier who had spent years defending his country, mastering skills that made him far more dangerous than they'd ever be. And in that moment, as they stared up at him, their fear growing, they knew they had made a terrible mistake. But the question was, what would he do next? The gang staggered back, their faces frozen in disbelief. The man they had mocked for his limp and cane now stood before them, steady and unmoved, his sharp eyes scanning them like a battlefield commander assessing his enemies. The tallest of the group, a boy with a cocky smirk that had quickly faded, clenched his fists and took a step forward. "What the hell was that?" he spat, trying to regain control. His friends hesitated, waiting for a cue. The old soldier didn't answer. Instead, he adjusted his grip on the cane, rolling his shoulder as if testing an old injury. There was no anger in his eyes, no wild fury, just a calm, unwavering presence. It was unsettling. The leader of the gang, unwilling to let his reputation take a hit, lunged forward, throwing a wild punch. It was a mistake. The soldier moved faster than anyone expected, sidestepping the attack and guiding the boy's momentum past him. A quick shift of his cane sent the attacker stumbling, crashing onto the pavement. The others watched in stunned silence. "Walk away," the man said, his voice low but firm. It wasn't a threat, it was advice. A chance. But pride is a dangerous thing. The fallen boy scrambled to his feet, his face red with humiliation. "Get him!" he barked. The rest of the group hesitated. Some of them were realizing this wasn't the easy fun they had expected. But others, fueled by peer pressure and fear of looking weak, rushed in. The next few seconds were a blur. The soldier barely moved, yet every attempt to grab him, push him, or throw a punch ended with someone tumbling to the ground. He wasn't attacking, he was simply redirecting their energy, using their own aggression against them. It was over in moments. Groaning, the teenagers picked themselves up. The soldier watched them, waiting. His breathing was steady. He had fought real battles, seen real enemies, this was nothing. But the boys weren't ready to give up. One of them, nursing a bruised arm, pulled out his phone and started recording. "We'll see how tough you are when everyone sees this," he sneered. The soldier sighed. He had spent years fighting for a world where kids like this could grow up without fear, without war. And yet here they were, creating their own battles, desperate to prove something to each other. Then, footsteps. A new presence. A girl stood at the edge of the park, her expression unreadable. She had been watching. She knew the soldier, but she hadn't spoken to him in years. She took a step forward, her voice cutting through the tension. "You really think you can embarrass him online? You don't even know who he is." The boy with the phone scoffed. "Just some old cripple who got lucky." The girl's expression darkened. "No. He's a decorated war hero. He saved lives. While you were out here picking on people, he was out there fighting for his country." A ripple of uncertainty spread through the group. Some of them exchanged uneasy glances. The leader scoffed, still unwilling to back down, but something had shifted. The soldier hadn't needed to defend himself, his reputation had. But then, something unexpected happened. A dark sedan rolled to a slow stop at the edge of the park. Two men stepped out, their movements precise, purposeful.
They weren't ordinary bystanders.
The soldier's body tensed. He recognized the way they moved.
The way they scanned the area. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot.
The soldier's grip tightened around his cane as he watched the two men step out of the sedan. They moved with quiet efficiency, their eyes scanning the park, assessing everything: the downed teenagers, the girl who had spoken up, and most importantly, him. He had seen their kind before.
Not cops. Not bystanders. Something else.
The teenagers, oblivious to the shift in the air, were still caught up in their own drama. The leader wiped blood from the corner of his mouth, glaring at the old man. He was angry, embarrassed, but more than that, confused. He had never lost control of a situation before, never felt outmatched by someone who wasn't supposed to be a threat.
The girl stepped forward again.
"You should leave," she told the gang.
"Before you make things worse."
The other boys hesitated, looking between their leader and the man who had just dismantled them without breaking a sweat. The fight had gone out of most of them. They were just kids, playing at being tough, and now they realized they had been playing a losing game. But the leader wasn't ready to walk away. He took a breath, about to say something, when one of the men from the sedan spoke.
"That's enough."
His voice was calm, even. But there was an authority in it that froze everyone in place. The soldier turned fully to face them now, his stance shifting ever so slightly. It was subtle, barely noticeable, but to a trained eye, it was the posture of someone preparing for something more serious.
The second man took a step forward.
He was younger than the first, but he carried himself the same way. "It's been a long time," he said, looking directly at the soldier. The old man didn't respond.
He didn't need to.
The tension between them spoke volumes. The girl looked between them, then back at the soldier.
"You know them?" A long pause.
Then, finally, he spoke. "Used to." The leader of the gang scoffed, still unaware of the shift in stakes.
"What, your army buddies? You need backup now?"
He laughed, but it was weaker than before, the bravado wearing thin. The older man from the sedan glanced at the teenagers, uninterested.
"Go home, kids. This isn't your fight." Something in his tone made even the most stubborn of them uneasy.
One by one, they started backing away, muttering excuses to each other. Only the leader hesitated, but when he saw none of his friends were staying, he threw one last glare at the soldier before turning to leave.
"This isn't over," he muttered under his breath.
The soldier barely acknowledged him. His focus was entirely on the two men who had just arrived.
The girl, however, didn't move. "What's going on?"
The younger of the two men smirked slightly.
"That's what we'd like to know."
The soldier exhaled slowly, his mind working. He had spent years trying to stay off the radar, keeping his life quiet.
But trouble had a way of finding him.
He turned to the girl. "You should go." She folded her arms.
"Not a chance."
The older man from the sedan sighed.
"Fine. Let's take a walk."
They moved toward a quieter part of the park, away from lingering eyes. The girl stayed close, determined to hear whatever was about to be said.
Finally, the soldier spoke. "Who sent you?"
The older man studied him for a moment.
"No one sent us. We were passing through, saw the commotion.
Then we saw you."
The soldier didn't buy it. "I don't believe in coincidences."
The younger man chuckled.
"Neither do we." A silence settled between them.
The soldier had spent years walking away from his past, but it had never truly let him go.
The older man finally got to the point. "There's been movement. People asking about you. Old contacts resurfacing."
The soldier frowned. He had made peace with the idea that his past might catch up with him one day.
He had prepared for it.
But hearing it now, after everything that had just happened, it wasn't what he had expected.
What do they want?
The younger man's smirk faded.
We don't know yet.
But whatever it is, it's big. The soldier was quiet for a long time. Then he turned to the girl.
You really shouldn't be here for this.
She shook her head.
I think I should.
The older man raised an eyebrow.
She's stubborn.
The soldier sighed.
Runs in the family.
The girl blinked in surprise. She had always suspected, but she had never heard him say it outright before. The younger man grinned.
Well, that complicates things.
The older man ignored him.
Look, we're not here to drag you back in. We're just giving you a warning. Whatever's coming, you should be ready.
The soldier nodded.
I always am.
The two men exchanged glances, then turned to leave. Just before they reached their car, the older man looked back. Be careful. Then they were gone. The girl turned to the soldier. You're not just some war hero, are you?
He sighed, rubbing his temple.
It's complicated. She shook her head, frustrated.
You always say that.
He gave her a small smile.
Because it's always true.
She wanted to push for more, but something in his expression told her that was all she was getting for now. They started walking again, side by side. The park was quiet now, the earlier chaos nothing but a memory. Finally, she spoke.
So what happens next?
The soldier glanced up at the sky, thinking.
We wait.
For what? His expression hardened just slightly. For whoever's looking for me to find me. And with that, they walked on, the sun beginning to set behind them, shadows stretching long across the pavement. Whatever came next, they would face it head on. Because some battles never truly end.